We found a really neat coffee shop right on the outskirts of town. This is the story of Crowing Hen Coffee Company. Coffee Company is in an unassuming plaza in Guilderland, New York. It's right on the way into Altamont, which is like literally the westernmost extremity of Albany. Now, going back a decade, we had this diner on Central Avenue, kind of going into downtown Albany, called Johny's Diner. And that's Johnny's with one N. When I stopped in to review that place for the blog, I was seriously impressed by the quality of the food, what they were putting out, and kind of the overall concept. The two things that really stood out to me were the homemade hash and their breakfast sausage patties, which they made in-house. The reason Johnny's is important is because the owner of Johnny's actually owns Crowing Hen Coffee Company. And back in the day, Johnny's was actually super popular in the foodie community here because they had a food challenge that I didn't really get to try, but it was actually pretty epic at the time. But as far as the rest of the concept of that diner, they were really ahead of their time, albeit in a really awkward location. Now, I've stayed connected with the owner, Patrick, on Facebook, and a couple weeks ago, he sent me a message challenging me to stop into his other location of Crowing Hen, which is a story for another day, to try a chicken sandwich. Big surprise, right? Now, Cassie's been looking at this place and telling me we gotta check it out because the coffee creations they had there look pretty amazing. One day, we just decided to get in the car and go. This Crowing Hen Coffee Company features a litany of coffee beverages. Think like Starbucks on steroids. Now, I'm all about good coffee, but when I got there, I had no idea what to pick. So I had to have a little help from the counter staff. I was kind of trying to decide between, there was a coconut one and this peanut butter one, peanut butter mocha thing. I ended up settling with the peanut butter mocha thing. Not only did this have like a nice, rich and bold coffee flavor, the mocha flavoring that they were using, you can tell is completely made in-house. And that peanut butter sauce they were using is also something that was definitely homemade and definitely made with natural peanut butter. And you can tell because it had a little bit of that grittiness that you just don't get in those supermarket peanut butters that you normally find. I take my coffee pretty seriously, especially over the top things like this, so I was pretty impressed. As far as a vibes check, I said this place isn't an unassuming plaza. In fact, if you drove too fast down the main road that it's located right off of, you probably would miss it, but once you're in the plaza they reside in, you'll never miss it. It's actually right next to a tattoo shop, and then as you enter, there's some tables, some chairs, nice stuff to sit on to enjoy a cup of coffee. You know, like a typical breakfast spot or like a coffee shop. It basically fits the mold. Let's talk about the food. So as soon as we arrived, the owner Patrick actually came out to greet me, and we talked for a little while about what he's doing there. And we talked a lot about what was on the menu, and honestly, I had no idea where to start. With the help of a small staff, this guy's in the kitchen making his own bagels and things like the Cragel, which we'll get back to in just a second. But as far as the menu design, there's a few breakfast sandwiches, some breakfast burrito type things, breakfast paninis. There's something there to please anybody who you would bring into that shop. As far as the way these are put together though, I would say they're far from standard. So I basically settled on their signature sandwich, which is called the Guilderland, which has scrambled eggs, chives, cheddar cheese, caramelized onion, and sriracha mayo on a brioche bun. My reasoning at the time was, since it's named after the town where I work, I figured I had to check it out. Honestly, whenever I order anything, I don't know what the criteria is. It was kind of a crapshoot at that point anyway. This was a pretty solid breakfast sandwich. Everything was kind of chopped together into like a massive scramble. And then once the sriracha mayo was in there and it was put on the bun, it kind of reminded me a lot of like a warm egg salad sandwich because of those kind of larger textured pieces of the egg. I think the brioche bun is a great kind of roll for this style sandwich. And I really did enjoy it, but I kind of enjoyed what Cassie got a little bit more. And it's for one very specific reason, which I alluded to earlier here, and it's that breakfast sausage. So what Cassie ordered was called Eggs Zeppelin, which is off their Breakfast Paninis album. And this was on more of like a country style bread that kind of lended itself more to being kind of griddled, just like you would a panini. And like I said, it featured their breakfast sausage, which, if I'm remembering correctly, actually tasted quite similar to what I had at Johnny's a decade ago. But in addition to that, there were also some eggs, cheddar cheese, and some kind of like nice little aioli on there to kind of lubricate everything as if it needed any more. The other thing was the prices of the two sandwiches were kind of similar, and this one was quite a lot bigger as far as like the overall size of it. And the other thing was Cassie was only able to finish half of hers because we had a couple of baked goods that I'll tell you about in just a second here as well. Being that she only finished half that sandwich, I got to try a little bit of that second half. And I honestly wanted to eat a lot more of it at the time, but I was already deep in that sandwich. I had had some sips of that latte, which was already pretty heavy as it is. and these baked goods where I couldn't really take too many bites of that sandwich, but it was absolutely incredible. And based on everything I just said there, between the 2 breakfast sandwiches and everything else going on, I could pretty much say with full confidence, based on my experience, that the way to go at Crowing Hen Coffee Company is definitely with those breakfast paninis, especially with that homemade sausage. When I get into my zone filming these things, sometimes I lose total sight of the mission. Plus, I was really drawn into the conversation with the owner, Patrick. So it's times like those that I'm really glad I have Cassie around, because she was able to rein it in and actually identify a couple of baked goods that we really had to try. The first was pan au chocolat. It basically is like a croissant filled with gobs of dark chocolate. And this was really awesome. You could tell definitely fresh baked, nice, flaky, buttery, everything that you would find in a normal pan au chocolat. And the little infrequent hits of chocolate were just enough to make this a treat. But the notable thing that we tried in the baked goods section is called a Cragel. And the Cragel is a crazy thing. It's basically a croissant cooked in the style of a bagel. So first it's boiled and then it's baked. And just because it's a great finishing touch, they hit it with a little everything bagel seasoning on top just to drive the bagel part of the name home. The result that you get cooking a croissant in this manner is actually much crispier croissant. Now, I believe there are some trade-offs cooking it this way. In fact, the one thing that you note is that a lot of the taste of the butter and a little bit of that kind of oiliness that you would find in a croissant really isn't there. And I suspect that's because as you boil it, a lot of that butter kind of runs away. But for something kind of fun to try, something unorthodox, this was something really cool. And for me, that everything seasoning actually put this over the top, because I think losing a little bit of that butter flavor and having that everything bagel seasoning really just helped this out quite a lot. The crazy thing is there's so much more on the menu that I want to try, and it's just close enough to work where I could probably pop in there for a lunch or a breakfast someday at any point. If you're enjoying this video, be sure to hit it with a like and subscribe if you like food. Another place doing really creative food like Crowing Hen Coffee Company is a place called Elusive in Rensselaer, New York. Click into this video right here to see how crazy their F Popeyes chicken sandwich is.